Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi reaffirms Egypt's commitment to a three-phase Gaza ceasefire for regional stability. U.S. President Donald Trump reaffirms his support for Israel's next actions in Gaza. And an Israeli airstrike on a car in Sidon, southern Lebanon, kills one and injures three others. It's 4 p.m. current local time and you're now watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has reviewed Egypt's efforts to implement the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip, emphasizing Egypt's commitment to executing the agreement in its three phases to support stability in the region. On the sidelines of the Egypt International Energy Exhibition, Egypt's 2025, the Cypriot president was briefed on Egypt's ongoing efforts to develop a comprehensive proposal for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip without displacing Palestinians or forcing them to leave their land. The two leaders reaffirmed the necessity of establishing a Palestinian state based on the borders of June 4, 1967, with East Jerusalem as its capital. 290 humanitarian aid trucks, including 23 carrying fuel, have entered the Al-Auja and Karm Abu Salem en route to Gaza. According to Qnews, the aid convoy, facilitated by Egypt, includes food, tents, and other essential supplies to support displaced residents. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Gazans should be given the choice to leave the enclave. Speaking at an event in Jerusalem, he said that U.S. President Donald Trump's plan for Gaza was right on the dot. Additionally, Israel and the United States are determined to thwart Iran's nuclear ambitions and its influence in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that on Sunday after meeting U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
But if other people wanted to leave, give them a choice, not forcible eviction.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed his support for Israel's next actions in Gaza. Trump stated that he told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do whatever he wants as detainees releases between Hamas and Israel were negotiated. Hamas released 3 detainees before a key deadline. Trump indicated that Israel would determine the next steps in consultation with him. A meeting of Arab leaders in Riyadh in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to take control of Gaza has been postponed from Thursday to Friday, February 21st. The summit will include the leaders of the 6 Gulf Cooperation Council countries, along with Egypt and Jordan, to discuss Arab alternatives to Trump's plans in the Gaza Strip. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Riyadh as part of his first trip to the Middle East as Secretary of State. Riyadh, which is also involved in talks with Washington over the future of the Gaza Strip, has played a role in early contacts between the Trump administration and Moscow. This included helping to secure a prisoner swap last week. The trip to Saudi comes ahead of expected talks with Russian officials aimed at ending Moscow's nearly 3-year conflict in Ukraine.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived in Riyadh, marking his first official visit to the Middle East since assuming office. His visit comes as Washington and Riyadh engage in discussions over the future of the Gaza Strip. During a meeting in occupied Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed gratitude for Rubio's strong backing of Israel's policy in Gaza. He reaffirmed that both Israel and the United States under President Donald Trump share a unified approach toward the ongoing situation in the enclave. President Trump reiterated his support for Israel's next steps in Gaza, stating he had given Netanyahu the green light to act at his discretion. His remarks come as Netanyahu continues to promote a controversial plan encouraging the resettlement of Gazans elsewhere, an initiative widely condemned worldwide, who argue it mounts on ethnic cleansing. Meanwhile, tensions in Gaza remain high. Palestinian residents in Rafah have denounced recent U.S. military aid to Israel, particularly the latest shipment of Mk-84 bombs. The 2,000-pound munitions, known for their destructive capability, were previously blocked by the Biden administration due to concerns over civilian casualties in densely populated areas. However, President Trump reversed that decision, allowing their export to Israel. As the conflict intensifies, Saudi Arabia is leading urgent Arab efforts to counter Trump's vision for Gaza, aiming to present an alternative strategy for the region's future.
And for more analysis, we now move to Rehem in our newsroom. Rehem.
Thank you, Hani. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Ashraf Al-Ashri, Al Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q. Firstly, sir, let's start off by asking, how is Egypt ensuring the full implementation of the Gaza ceasefire agreements in its 3 phases?
Good afternoon to you and your esteemed viewers. Absolutely, Egypt, for such an end, is making a very expansive talks with all the American, Qatari, Palestinian partners of Hamas and the Israeli partners, and to say that there is an Egyptian desire of necessity to implement all the phases of the ceasefires, despite Netanyahu that says that should have a commitment of the first stage, and along with the opposition of the far-right coalitions such as Symmetric, and hence Cairo is making communications with all the relevant parties in order to deliver the humanitarian aids, the machinery, and the mobile homes, and is making calls with the Israeli side along with the communications for the purpose of the continuation of the second and the third stages affirmed by Witkov, the Trump's convoy of the Middle East, by affirming that there is a seriousness to execute the second and the third stages, and America is cooperating with the Egyptian side and calling for the implementation of the ceasefire agreement.
So, sir, how does Trump's renewed support impact Israel's next moves in Gaza?
Unfortunately, Trump, since taking office, provided 3 presents for Netanyahu. The U.S. Secretary of State, Rubio, have visited Israel, supporting Israel, and we've heard that talks from Netanyahu is not going to withdraw in that, and for the Palestinian Authority to govern Gaza. And Netanyahu reiterated yesterday through the statement of the U.S. Secretary of State that the new proposals regarding the depopulation of the Palestinians will be a reality which is different and contradicted to the reality, and it isn't applicable due to the regional and the Egyptian position by rejecting the proposals that would lead to liquidation of the Palestinian cause. Therefore, the Israeli position should be changed, and we rely on for the upcoming Arab summit. You know that there is a fifth members or states summit to be taking place in Riyadh, and there are communications by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi with several world leaders. Lately, the meeting with Cyprus President in Cairo to reject the attempts of the depopulation and Egypt's readiness to present a comprehensive and integrated initiative for reconstruction without any displacement of the Palestinians. And therefore, there is an attempt of judging the position of America. They might reconsider its proposition that would rely on Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia in meeting with Bulletin, and we hope that we see a deterioration or a setback of the American proposals in the upcoming times.
We've also seen, sir, Netanyahu's statements in allowing Gazans to leave the enclave. What are the implications of the statements that came out of Netanyahu's mouth during the press conference?
Certainly, all these proposals are unrealistic and cannot be implemented in reality. You know that it would be impossible for any state in the world to pursue the displacement of 2.4 million people in a space of land of 65 kilometers. Where they go? America cannot be transferred by airplanes or buses, and therefore they'll be facing great challenges. In addition to the Arab, Egyptian, Jordanian opposition rejecting entirely to the U.S. proposals, and they have new proposals of the reconstruction. And there is an counter project that would be presented before the Arab summit, and there is also international and European rejection, even Russia, and playing a great role in rejecting this proposal. And I think this proposal will be failed as the reality that will prevent any attempt of displacement, a change in the geography, as well as the amount of the populations of the Gazans in the West Bank.
So, sir, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is on a Middle East tour and is visiting Riyadh amid the ongoing conflict. What is the significance of this visit?
The Riyadh's visit will tackle two files. The first one, the participation with the U.S. National Security Counselor, as well as Witkoff, the U.S. American envoy, in tackling the details by convening an upcoming summit between America and Russia in Riyadh to address the Ukrainian crisis. And the second part is to address the American plan regarding the depopulation of the Palestinians before the Saudi Arab counter position. And the Prince Mohammed bin Salman has already met with the Saudi foreman, the U.S. Secretary, reported him that Egypt is preparing a new plan to reject displacement and the reconstruction of Gaza. Therefore, he is preparing the expected Trump with Putin and Trump and tackling the details of the Arab position, and to be informed by the Secretary of State and the possibility in tackling an American and Arab role regarding the talks regarding the truce, as well as the following day of Gaza Strip.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. From Cairo, that was Ashraf Al-Ashri, Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. And now back to you, Hani, in the studio.
Thank you, Raham. Hamas has praised the African summit's final statement condemning Israel's war on Gaza and rejecting its violations of international law. The movement called for Israel's prosecution for genocide and urged an end to all forms of cooperation and normalization until the occupation ceases. Hamas stated that the recent summit strengthens Palestinian resilience and signals to the international community the need to address Israeli aggression. They also urged African nations to take concrete action by increasing political and legal pressure on Israel, supporting Palestinian efforts in international forums, and backing the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital.
I think the best way of implementing this new theme is...
The Israeli occupation forces have arrested at least 25 Palestinians from the West Bank, including children and former prisoners. The Commission of the Prisoners' Affairs and the Palestinian Prisoners' Society reported that the arrestation took place in the governorates of Al Khalil and Ramallah. Meanwhile, the occupation forces have continued to implement its aggression in the governorates of Jenin and Tulkarm for several weeks, which is accompanied by ongoing detentions and field investigations, as the number of detentions in Jenin and its camps since the beginning of the invasion has reached 160, while in Tulkarm and its camps, the number of arrests has reached at least 130. Groups of Israeli settlers have attacked Palestinian homes and properties in the towns and villages of Duma, Aqraba, and Jurish in the Nablus governorate in the occupied West Bank overnight. The settlers assaulted several people and stolen dozens of their sheep, destroyed a poultry farm, and threw stones at homes and vehicles. Earlier, Israeli forces left at least 13 Palestinians wounded after an incursion into the city of Nablus and its old town. North of occupied East Jerusalem, Israeli soldiers again closed the entrance to the town of Isawiya and caused traffic jams as they checked vehicles. Israeli occupation has continued its aggression on the city of Jenin and its camp for the 28th consecutive day, which has so far killed 25 Palestinians and left dozens of injuries. The extent of the damage in Jenin camp is becoming clear as the Israeli operation continues. Homes, businesses and properties have been heavily damaged in the camp's neighborhoods and streets. Israeli occupation forces continue to send reinforcements, including bulldozers and fuel tankers, to the camp's entrances and surrounding areas. Bulldozers are demolishing buildings and clearing streets in several neighborhoods, while drones are flying at low altitudes over the camp. The Israeli occupation army has continued its aggression on the city of Tulkarm and its camp for the 22nd consecutive day and the 9th day on Nur Shams camp. The occupation forces reinforced Tulkarm and Nur Shams camps with troops and vehicles, seizing homes and turning neighborhoods into military outposts. Raids in Tulkarm camps saw searches, destruction and interrogations. Nur Shams remains under siege with escalating demolitions, heavy gunfire and explosions. The Jabara checkpoint remains closed for the 10th day, isolating Tulkarm from surrounding areas. Israel has issued a tender for the construction of 974 new illegal housing units in the Efrat settlement, a strategic area located south of Bethlehem in the occupied West Bank. The tender is for the establishment of a new Israeli neighborhood that expands the Efrat settlement in the occupied territories with the 644 dunams and will increase the number of residents by approximately 40%. If Israel seeks to annex the area, it will cut off the entire southern West Bank, which depends on the connection to the north through Bethlehem on Highway 60, to the east of which the Efrat settlement is located. Israeli protesters have blocked a busy road in Tel Aviv to demand the return of all detainees who have spent 500 days in captivity. People rallied across the country to mark 500 days of captivity since October 7th, with many protesting and participating in a 500-minute fast in solidarity with the detainees. There had been growing alarm that the ceasefire agreement could unravel before the end of the 42-day first stage of the truce pact in effect since January 19th, leaving many families worried about the return of detainees. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai stated that Iran has defended its nuclear program and will not be hesitant to continue doing so. He said Iran's peaceful nuclear program is ongoing and has been for the last 3 decades, based on Iran's rights as a member in the Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Baghai added Iran definitely will not show any weakness in this regard. And now we move on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
وضع شيء مرعب شيء بخوف.
An Israeli airstrike on a car in Sidon, a coastal city in southern Lebanon, has killed 1 civilian and injured 3 others. Israeli army announced that it assassinated Hamas operations commander in Lebanon, Mohammed Shaheen, in a joint operation with Shin Bet targeting his vehicle in Sidon, Lebanon. The Israeli attack has raised further concerns over escalating tensions between the regime, Lebanon, and Palestinian factions operating in the region. An Israeli drone has dropped a hand grenade at the main square in the town of Kfar Shuba in southern Lebanon. According to the country's national news agency, the Israeli army is currently setting fire to a number of houses in the town of Odessa near the border, where it has also burnt homes in the past few weeks, despite the ceasefire with Hezbollah. Lebanese sources are also reporting that an explosion was heard in Yarun in the south. The Israeli occupation military has advanced in the town of Kfar Shuba in the south of the country. Local media confirmed that this incursion is considered the first since the deployment of the Lebanese army in the area. And it comes as Lebanese officials say they expect a quick withdrawal by the Israeli army. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. Egyptian President Sisi reaffirms Egypt's commitment to a 3-phase Gaza ceasefire for regional stability. US President Donald Trump reaffirms his support for Israel's next actions in Gaza. This concludes our news bulletin for this hour, but please don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY to stay informed. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.